I've watched a lot of anime over the years with a bunch of interesting and unorthodox plots, but one anime that I never seem to hear anything about anymore despite its premise is Dansai Bunni no Crime Edge, otherwise known as the Severing Crime Edge. Granted, when it first debuted, it garnered an audience for its odd story, but now, almost 9 years later, this anime still lives on rent-free in my mind, and I don't exactly know why. And since I seem to unfortunately remember so much about it, I've decided to bite the bullet and tell y'all about what I like to call Hair Fetish the Anime. Hair! The Severing Crime Edge was a manga created by Tatsuhiko Hikagi that ran in the Seinen magazine Monthly Comic Alive from March 27, 2009 to September 19, 2015. It received an anime adaptation in the spring 2013 anime season that ran for 13 episodes from April 13th to June 17th. Mind you, this was the same season that Attack on Titan, My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, The Devil's a Part-Timer, Oreimo 2, and Data Lab came out, so it was a pretty mixed bag when it came to quality at the time. The story centers around two characters who both look way too young for their age, Kiri Homura and Iwai Mushanokochi. Kiri's known as a pretty weird kid in his neighborhood because he loves to give people haircuts, which happen to be pretty good. Problem is, he's pretty obsessed with it. Treated as an outcast, he hears about a long-haired ghost who lives atop a hill in an abandoned house and decides to go and see what it's all about. There, he meets Iwai Mushanokochi, a girl who does have long, beautiful hair, but who's fully alive and well. Now, this is where things start to get a little weird. Ever since he was little, Kiri loved cutting hair, unbearably so. So when he sees such beautiful long hair in front of him, what does he do? Well, what any other 14-year-old boy going through puberty would do, of course. Get the irresistible urge to cut her hair. After a weird and somehow sexually charged encounter between them, they become friends, because why not? Thus, Kiri discovers that Iwai is known as the Hair Queen, and her hair cannot be cut. That is until he does cut her hair, thus making Kiri's scissors the only item that can cut Iwai's hair. And even if he does chop all of Iwai's hair off, it all just grows back at midnight, meaning Kiri can chop off all he likes and somehow get his fix. But it turns out that his obsession with cutting hair and their weird-ass relationship isn't all that odd. Kiri's scissors, which Kiri and Iwai both dubbed the Severing Crime Edge, belonged to his ancestor Norma Graylin, who is known as the most infamous serial killer in history, rumored to have murdered hundreds of people. Kiri's actually in possession of a killing tool, and to suppress his murderous urges, uses Iwai as an instead by cutting her hair every day. That's also when we discover that Iwai, as the Hair Queen, is being targeted by other weird-ass people called authors, as whoever does assassinate her will have one wish granted. On top of Kiri and Iwai's particular relationship that eventually blossoms into a romance, the cast of the Severing Crime Edge all happen to have killing goods and insteads that fulfill some rather interesting kinks. My god, this author was horny as hell. Half of me feels like this should have been a doujinshi. Yamane Byoinzaka has the killing good, the injection of eternal sleep, which is a syringe that can murder anyone who gets injected or merely scraped. Because of her thirst for blood, as it used to be in possession of a doctor who poisoned his patients, she injects her older sister, Hoka Byoinzaka, with saline and treats her as her instead. Yamane also murdered her parents, which seems to be more of a throwaway as they don't really focus on that. Ruka Shihodo has the killing good pet whip of submissive butchery, which should be pretty self-explanatory, but actually has a twist. By whipping people with it, she can turn people into submissive zombies. She uses Romeo Zaiga, her childhood friend, as an instead. To top it off, we've also got a lolly named Emily Redhands, who is an assassin in possession of the killing goods, the opener of bloody dissection, who doesn't really require an instead, which sounds great at first, until you're told she's very interested in sexual affairs, so yeah, this isn't weird at all. The only normal author is probably the guy with a book who enjoys murdering people, and that's saying a lot. With all of this talk of killing goods and authors, you've gotta have some kind of big organization, right? Of course you do! In a twist no one saw coming back in 2012 when Future Diary was super popular, the baddies behind this series is an organization called Gossip, home to the very same people who wish to assassinate Iwai. So, the episodes often focus on either Kiri and Iwai's sexually charged haircutting, an author attempting to assassinate Iwai, some other author's sexually charged kink, and Iwai yelling his name. Kirika! 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 This sounds so dumb. The anime doesn't dive into why Iwai is the hair queen, nor why some of the authors even want to kill her to get their wish granted. That's pretty unfortunate since the highlight of the anime is more about the satisfaction each author gets from using their instead. That sounds weird, but you know, this anime is weird anyway. And to be honest, after almost a decade, I barely remember anything about the characters other than the fact of Kitty's obsession with cutting hair and how uncomfortable it was watching. Granted, that is a pretty good way of having someone remember a series, throw in some weird shit so they can remember that part.
意識がなくなる瞬間は気持ちがいいとか、昔柔道講習で締められて落ちて以来こうなんというか気絶するのが癖にあれ The
Severing Crime Edge is quite the trip. On paper, it has all of the dynamics and characters that can make it a pretty good anime. That is, until you realize it may have too many little details shoved into a mere 13 episodes, and even too much for 11 manga volumes. Besides, this debuted back when Mysterious Girlfriend, the saliva trading anime, only came out like 1 year before, so people were probably already used to particular fetishy anime. It's not like that's gone out of style, with anime like Miru Tights and an anime name that I'll probably be demonetized for saying in English, so I'll just say it in Japanese. Iyana kao sare nagara o pants misete moraitai. While the Severing Crime Edge isn't horrible per se, it does hit certain odd boxes that not many anime fill nowadays. In an interesting way, it kind of feels nostalgic to look back on it. And while it isn't perfect by any means, I think if anyone does go for a rewatch of it, it'll surprise you with how anime can seem way weirder back then than it is now.